Good afternoon, you rock and rollers. My name is Scott. Over there, that's Obi. Down there is Mr. Brandon K. And over there is Mr. JD Walker. And welcome to Spangler Sports World and the Sports Den on Zingo TV, channel 250 and 249. Make sure to remember to download the Zingo TV app on the app stores of iOS and Android devices. If you have a Windows phone, you can't get it. But then again, Windows phones, nobody has them anymore. When you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment because both apps are free. BT Dubs, and I said it again, Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Bottom line, if you have modern technology, you can get Zingo. Gentlemen, we got a lot to go into. In case you actually aren't aware, you guys may or may not know this, but hey, the Super Bowl is coming this weekend. How you guys doing?
I'm great. I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl. I'm not going to say anything about it just yet. I'm sure you'll have some specific questions, but I am excited for the game, and I think we all should be. I think it's going to be a good one.
100%. So, Brandon, how you doing, man?
Great, guys. How are we? I feel like haven't spoke to you guys in a while. I have my Bubble Bowl shirt on.
Nice.
Kind of get the little Super Bowl vibe really going. Yeah, I'm definitely. This game has probably been the only thing on my mind since championship weekend, and it's kind of led me to I would say, epiphany, which I can delve into later on. But yeah, it's great to be here.
Nice. And last but definitely not least, Mr. Walker, how about you, man?
Doing pretty good. Getting my usual college basketball fix while waiting for the Super Bowl.
March Madness is coming fast, so we got to talk about that upcoming.
And
but
Duke loses every single game now. That's new.
100%. So first things obviously first. Like I said, Super Bowl is upcoming. It's been a good week and a half of waiting. The Pro Bowl happened this weekend, technically. It aired, technically. Nobody really cared, despite the fact that it aired on, I think, like 5 different networks, somewhere between ABC and Disney. But more importantly, we got a big one coming up. We got a bit of a David versus semi-Goliath, not as big a Goliath, in Los Angeles, basically playing at home, so to speak, against the Cincinnati Bengals. Obi, I'm going to start with you, then JD, then Brandon. Give me your thoughts coming up on this. Give me your opinions, and what do you see as an outcome?
So, first I don't like that David versus Goliath. I think at the beginning of the season, this was David versus Goliath. I just don't think that this is such a David. I'm looking at these teams, and if you throw up those names on offense, position for position, the 3 receivers versus the 3, even the number 1 versus the number 1, 2, running back, wide receiver, tight end, these teams in the skill positions, anybody can argue for either guy being better, whether it's by numbers or then you go, well, look at his skill. Look at his numbers, look at his skill. It is unbelievable on offense. So then what you do is you go to the defense. Cincinnati's defense starts to fall off a little bit when you start to look at it. Look, Hutchinson's is probably as good, just not as big as a name as those defensive linemen for LA. But notice I said linemen, not lineman. Eli Apple is surprisingly good. Sorry, Giants fans. He's surprisingly good. Is he Ramsey? No.
He was back then too.
But can he cover a guy? Yes. So, and local hero here in the Philadelphia, especially Jersey side of Philadelphia area, right out of Howden Township, my next door neighbor. So the question becomes those 5 guys you don't know and those offensive linemen. And we've seen Cincinnati making Burrow run for his life. Now, Burrow, you look at him and you want to think 6'4" statue of a quarterback, but he's not. He probably won his Heisman just as much for his legs as he did for his arm and then winning the championship. So I'm rooting for Cincinnati. I think LA is a slightly better team, but you know what? I don't buy into McVay. McVay, I think, almost cost them both games in the last 2 rounds of the playoffs. I know that he's coaching against one of his own disciples, but he just makes some coaching blunders. I think he took the ball out of Stafford's hands too many times in the Tampa Bay game with 2 fumbles in the red zone by a running back. Horrible. I think the single worst red flag I've ever seen on that fumble where literally the ball's in the guy's hands who made that decision? So because I'm rooting for Cincinnati, I've convinced myself that McVay coaching is going to make up for that defensive line, and I didn't learn a thing from last year's Super Bowl.
All right, JD, how about you, man?
I mean, I don't think this is a David versus Goliath matchup at all. Both
I feel
teams
like I
are
misspoke
very
on that one too. I mean, let me backtrack a little bit on this. Not as much a David and Goliath as perhaps against Kansas City, but again, I mean, LA's been there before, and it is home. That's why I went with it that way. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit on that. Just to play a little even there. So
both teams are very evenly matched on paper. Joe Burrow and the Bengals, since this is their first time down this road, they've performed. They have outdone my expectations, but both of these teams have. Um, while the Rams were just in this game 4 years ago, it feels like an eternity because of the amount of roster turnover since then. You have a few of the same studs on defense, but really that's about it. It's mostly a completely new team. You have the factor of LA playing at home, which I believe does give a slight edge to the Rams, but coaching is about even from both sides. I've never been a big Sean McVay fan for various reasons. Those challenges were dumb. I felt like that the Rams won
both of them.
despite him, and this is this is a good matchup. It's a new matchup. Enough of Brady, and even enough of the Chiefs to an extent. A break from the Chiefs is nice for a year, but just we have somebody different. I'm loving the Macaulay Culkin Joe Burrow memes this week.
Thank you. I got trashed for saying that.
No, they're spot on.
Dude,
they really
I
are.
got ripped on for saying that. Sorry, I'm just griping. Humor me. So
yeah, and it's something different. It's fresh. I'm looking forward to it because it's something different. We'll see if the commercials are any good. They frankly haven't been the past few years. Halftime show is actually looking like it might be something worth watching. So we have some good excitement on our hands, especially as the rest of the sports world is mired in negativity of one way or another. This is finally something exciting to look forward to.
Nice, Brandon. You've been remarkably patient, man. Let it loose.
Oh, here we go. No,
Yes.
so to jump on your guys' take about the refreshing matchup between the Rams, even though we've seen the Rams in the Super Bowl recently, they do kind of have like a rebooted feel to them, and we now have Cincinnati in the Super Bowl. And I remember saying to you, Scott, when I jumped on the end of the game, even saying Cincinnati Bengals are in the Super Bowl sounds weird. Like it didn't even come out of my mouth right. And to go back to your point, Obi, where going player for player to each position, going down LA's roster and Cincinnati's roster, I think it is a lot more balanced than a lot of people are giving it credit for. I think part of it is kind of the facade of you have the glorious and the glamorous LA Rams, brand versus the real underdog small town Bengals, the Cincinnati. So I think that's kind of masking a little bit of that. So I think really when it comes down to the brass tacks of this game, like most of them do, I think it's going to be that coaching chess match between Taylor and Sean McVay. And we've seen Sean McVay like a couple weeks ago in the NFC Championship, and we were livid, JD and I, with these challenges and some of these coaching decisions, and we didn't really understand what some of his logic was. So I think that's going to play into aspects of this game. And I think another point of this that I don't think anybody's really said, I haven't heard it, between the two quarterback matchups, I think we have two of the most likable guys in the league.
Yes.
We get Brady, and even if like a Big Ben got to a Super Bowl or a Rodgers, Peyton, a lot of these guys to certain fan bases are very polarizing, especially like a Brady. And if Rodgers were to get to a Super Bowl, especially with what he's gone through these last couple of years, to have Stafford and Burrow, to have two really likable guys, Stafford with what he's been through in Detroit, Burrow with his injury and just his kind of historic, kind of even high school to college to pro transition, and just this smooth, roller coaster of an upward trajectory. I think we're really going to have an exciting game, and I think it's going to be close.
Burrow would also be the first quarterback to win If Burrow wins the Super Bowl, he would be the first quarterback to win a college championship, a Heisman, and a Super Bowl. No quarterback has done all three. There's only two other ones, Joe Namath and Joe Montana, who even won a college championship and a Super Bowl. So if Burrow joined them, he'll be the only person to have all three. And he's only doing it. This is only his second year in the league, and his first year he was injured for most of it.
I think this has the potential to be one of the. It's going to be very hit or miss. I think it's going to be one of the games that's going to go down as one of the all-time greatest or possibly all-time worst. I don't think there's going to be any middle ground with this. I think you have two teams that are not really, like I said, high octane, shall we say. So it depends a lot on what Stafford and Joe Burrow can bring to the table here. Like you said, Brandon, you got two likable guys. You got two feel-good stories. I think that's the way I would word this. And that's just at the quarterback position. That's not counting everything else. That's not counting Mixon. That's not counting OBJ. I'll throw him into the mix. You have so many feel-good stories that you can work with on something like this. But I'm not fully 100% convinced this is going to be a high-octane, long-term memorable game. It might well be, but it could end up being something that's a little bit of a slog. You look at what Cincinnati did, against Tennessee, for example. I mean, that was a slug of a game there. I don't know if we're going to get that one or we're going to get some kind of a massive comeback like we had against Kansas City. On the other side of the fence, I mean, can Matt Stafford continue? I mean, listen, he has had a comeback year. You mentioned about what it was like with him, struggling in Detroit for as long as he did, dealing with all of that, and then suddenly getting thrust into a different limelight, and a different spotlight than, say, Detroit had. And he's been able to basically break a lot of the shackles that he's had on his career and answer a lot of questions that have been there. Is it going to be enough? I don't know. I mean, in this case, the game against San Francisco was a close one, and he did it again. Both guys had really good games too, one game and then, one game, which was, like I said, a little bit of a slog. So I'm not totally sure which way this game is going to go. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be within 4 points. My feeling is, and I've been wrong so far, so take it for what it's worth, but I feel like LA is going to win this game, maybe like 27-23. But at the same time, I have voted against Cincinnati for 2 games there, and I have been wrong both times. So there is something special about that Bengals team that has gotten them this far. And I'm going to use, I said David and Goliath. I'm going to correct myself. I'm going to say Cinderella, because I think a lot of people going into it didn't expect them to get as far as they did, as fast as they did. So I will go with Cinderella. Obi, go ahead. You had something.
You're on mute, Obi.
Here. So if you want to use ASL, yeah. Yeah. All right. So Obi, just start talking. Basically, we'll just interrupt us when necessary. JD, anything to add?
This is also the entire city of Detroit is behind Matt Stafford, because
True.
You would expect somebody to be mad and about this. They are mad at the Lions because all of the Lions fans, or whoever passes for Lions fans anymore, are absolutely disgusted with the team, and they're 100% behind Stafford.
What I see, and Obi, I'll give it to you in a sec. What I see in some ways is when Ray Bork got traded over to Colorado 20 years ago. Yeah. Boston was livid with what was happening with that franchise, and a player that they liked and they respected. They rooted for the player, and then by virtue through the team itself.
I think the city of Boston threw a parade for Ray Bork.
So, Obi, go ahead before I pass out over here.
First, I want to touch on something that JD just glimpsed over. I think it's the halftime show. America, be prepared. These guys are rappers. You remember them from your youth. You forget how rebellious you were. They are going to be offensive. They are going to say things and do things to women on stage that maybe you don't want your kids to see. This is not a rated PG group. Keep that in mind. I don't want to hear you on Monday about how offensive they were. This is hard. This is rap, and some of their songs with deep cuts that they pull them out are not pretty. I like the songs, but I just want you to know where you're going. Don't be stupid. I don't want to hear it like you did after J-Lo. Oh, she danced on have you seen a J-Lo video? That's number one. Number two, the thing that you just talked about, he was traded, not a free agent, and not a guy who was begging to get out. So I think that really endears him to Detroit fans. Mm-hmm. But back to the game, I think these can be a high-scoring game. Both of these teams have scored points in sections of games against good defenses. Like, yeah, it was a slog to watch that San Francisco game. I went in rooting for San Francisco, and then by virtue of how good their defense was compared to how bad their quarterback was, I was like, I can't watch this. I can't watch this team stop another team and not be able to score any points. That was why it was a slog. Tennessee, the same thing. Like, this is where you see these average quarterbacks and these good running backs. They can keep you in a game, but the game becomes a slog. But you're not going to have that here. Now, the question is this, in terms of whether it will be a super high-scoring game, is how good will LA's defense be in the first half, and how good will Cincinnati's defense be in the second half? If LA's defense is only okay, if Cincinnati has it figured out early in the first half, I think this game could get away from everybody. If not, LA might get ahead early in the first half, but Cincinnati may be able to pull off a comeback because what they have shown is they can go in and make legitimate second half adjustments. Like they literally changed the defense they were playing against Kansas City. They took a man in from the line. They brought him back to control the middle of the field. They went from double high coverage to single high coverage. Like, they changed their defense, and they proved they could do that. So I think that in terms of a slog, it might kind of be sloggy if you get that first half, but then it's going to be, can Cincinnati catch up? And we already have fears that LA can't hold on to a lead. We've already had that storyline. So I think the game is going to hold tension and excitement unless Cincinnati can't make second half adjustments, in which case we could have a snooze fest with LA going away. Again, I'm taking Cincinnati because I don't have faith in McVay. I just don't.
I want to go into predictions in a sec if you're willing to divulge. But Brandon, do you have anything you want to add first before we get to that?
I was going to say, with this matchup, Rams-Bengals, in all of sports, there aren't too many matchups, whether it be regular season, postseason, or whatever, the championship series or game, where I am so black and white split on head versus heart, where I have my head, I think the Rams are going to pull it off, but my heart, like, I am really on this Bengal train. I am on the Joe Burrow train. I haven't picked an exact score yet, but I will pick Cincinnati. I think it's going to be one of these games where, yeah, you'll probably have a slow first half where they're feeling each other out, especially that first quarter. And then kind of that mid to late third quarter, things will start picking up, more sparks will fly. And then kind of that fourth quarter, when really, the last football minutes of the season are counting down, then I think really anything can happen. And I think at the end of the day, Cincinnati, they might have the higher score and end up winning this game. I think part of this too, with Burrow specifically, if I'm looking at it, let's go back to the championship game. At a college championship game, you are getting 80 to 90% those schools' fans, especially they're always probably a Southern team. Those fan bases will travel to every corner of the country to support their school. You are not going to get that same level of intense fan intensity in the Super Bowl. So I think Burrow isn't going to be phased at all with any amount of pressure, so to speak, in the Super Bowl. For that reason, I think he's really going to stand his own. I think he's going to have a great game.
Let me ask you this: that offensive line versus Von Miller and Aaron Donald, after what happened in Tennessee,
if they can hold Burrow to, or let's say if they can protect Burrow where he's not sacked more than maybe 4 or 5 times, then they really have a hell of a chance, because they're going to get to him and he's going to get sacked. You can bet any amount of dollars on it. It's a amount of limiting that and how basically how strong can you build that pocket and how impenetrable can you make it?
If Tennessee can sack Burrow 9 times, how many would the Rams do?
Mhm.
The Bengals' offensive line has been questionable for years. They got Burrow hurt last year, and they got him beaten up throughout the course of the season in the playoffs. Now Burrow has played well despite all of that. So that is the weakest link. But if they can hold it together, if the Cincinnati offensive line can hold it together, then they have a shot. My head says Rams, but my heart says Cincinnati. So
All right.
I haven't really picked a score one way or yet. And also, while the Rams are playing at home, it's LA. So there really isn't that much of a home crowd to begin with. Super Bowl crowds traditionally are not like it's only rich VIPs are the only ones who can go. So there isn't really much passionate fan base for either team, especially involving a team like the Bengals that don't really have that much of a national following. I mean, I would still give a slight edge to the Rams. And all right, I'll go with let's say Rams 24, Cincinnati 19.
So pretty close to what I had put out there then. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot with that either. If you don't have an answer, listen, by all means, change it between now and Sunday. I mean, 1,000 things could happen between now and then.
Yeah.
But I mean, some of the tickets for this game are going for like I think 39,000 and change is what I saw for lower tier. I don't know if that was Vivid Seats or Ticketmaster. I forget where it was, but it was 39 grand for like first row 50-yard line. And yeah, business execs and people that have way more money than we've got to spend.
You have plenty of Hollywood people who are going to buy up all those seats.
Valid point. Yeah. And basically, well, see, here's the thing. The Hollywood people will get, basically will get the tickets. The really big Hollywood people will get the boxes.
Yes.
The average
there's going to be people. There's going to be Hollywood people that normally get luxury suite tickets to whatever event they want, and they're going to get shut out and have to go in the general population, and they're going to.
Oh God!
It's going to be a little fun. No, I have to be among the common folk. Who can't afford to even be anywhere near the stadium.
Okay, so actually, you know what, Obi? I have one question for you guys, but Obi, go ahead. You've been patient. You had something you wanted to ask.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was going to just double down on this really isn't a home game for the Rams. Even in the home games for the Rams in the regular season, they weren't the Bolts, but it's not the most rabid fan base to begin with. And Joe Burrow has played in some pretty obnoxious situations opposing him. So that was the first thing I was going to say. And then there was another point here, this offensive line situation. Their offensive line sucks. I still don't know if Joe Burrow is the reason he gets sacked or not, because sacks can be partially a quarterback's fault. We saw it, by the way, with Deshaun Watson, who would get, when he would go out in Houston, the other quarterback would come in and get sacked less. On the flip side, we do remember that they held their own against that Raiders defensive line. Like, don't forget that although they got crushed against Tennessee's defensive line, the Raiders defensive line held it against the Raiders defensive line. They held their own. So I just want to keep the idea that they might be able to coach some more coverage out of it, and Burrow might be able to use his legs sufficiently is worth noting. But yes, I think obviously that's why all three of us brains are going with the Rams, because that defensive line we saw last year. We saw what happens when the defensive line overpowers an offensive line in the Super Bowl. We saw it last year. And our hearts are with, let's face it, Joe Burrow is the coolest thing to happen to football in a very long. He is just so cool. And that's what it comes down to. Like, you almost want him to do something stupid so you can stop rooting for him, because he's just that cool right now. So I think that's why our hearts are with Joe Burrow, and our brains are with the line that is Aaron Donald and Von Miller. I mean, a Super Bowl MVP, Von Miller, by the way, and a Aaron Donald who held a New England Super Bowl team to 13 points. So those two things you got to keep in mind, that Von Miller was on defense that stopped the New England offense. His offense got stopped as well. And Von Miller was on a team that stopped the Cam Newton offense, and he's an MVP of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, nice. Now, magic question here, and this is the big one. You mentioned the halftime show. The current odds right now, the odds on favored is that Mary Kay Blige is going to be starting off. She has the odds 170. Kendrick Lamar is 255. Snoop Dogg is 355. Dr. Dre is 505. And frankly, nobody's giving Eminem a shot in hell at actually starting first. In this case, do you take the odds? Do you say that Mary Kay Blige will be actually the first performer in the halftime show? I'm going Snoop Dogg just because.
I could see it being Kendrick first, then Mary J, then Snoop, and I actually think Eminem, and I think Dre is going to be last. Being the OG, like real OG, I think he's going to be last.
Maybe Eminem and Dre together at the end.
Like
I think they just start with Snoop Dogg, or they end with Snoop Dogg, since Snoop helped Dr. Dre get started, and then Dr. Dre helped Eminem get started. Really, Snoop is the OG out of all of that group.
Okay, so then all right, that's fair.
But yeah, Mary Kay Blige is the overwhelming favorite to be number one.
I'm going to go a different angle here, because if I'm not mistaken, in my skills in this particular art form are not all that amazeballs. But if I am mistaken, Dre's the only one who spins records as part of his act, and I can see him being on the whole time, spinning and singing with each of them, because Snoop is OG, but Dre is NM, as in new money, real money, $3 billion for beats, and he's going to do what he wants. So that's why I think you're going to see Dre with everybody. Dre's going to be up there.
Dre is the enterprise.
Yeah, so I think he keeps his space.
That's an enterprise himself.
Yeah, they actually pretty much they all are.
Yeah.
The number, basically, the over under right now is 7.5 for songs.
It's still on the.
Does that include partial? Does that include partial songs and medleys?
It doesn't say in this case. 140 to 110 over under 7.5. Color of Eminem's hair cover Eminem's hair, brown or black, white or blonde, or any other color.
Black.
What are the limits on these bets?
I have no idea. You know what? I'm just literally pulling this up on the fly because we just happened to mention something. And
what's the limit of what?
Well, see, a lot of times there's limits on these bets because this information, it's not like a game. It's like you don't know what's going to happen. Like right now, if you had inside information, this show, the order of the show has been decided months ago. Like they know
everything is set up.
Oh yeah.
So they put limits on the bet so that it's not really worth it for somebody with inside information to go lay $1 million on here because they know.
Now, curiously enough, California Love is actually the favorite to be the first song. So,
who's singing the anthem? I forget.
Some McKay Cutter,
Guyton, yeah.
Guyton.
Over under on that, by the way, is 95 seconds. If it's going to be how long that's going to be.
Always take the over.
I would go, 95 seconds is pretty quick for a national anthem.
Plus, they're always going to milk their time on TV for that.
Yeah, but I would, what's always funny though? They always do the first verse. They never do all four. Most people don't realize the national anthem had 4 verses. Some of which may not have aged well.
One is one before.
The poem and the song are different animals, so no, it doesn't have 4 verses. The poem and the song are different animals.
But all right, so we're about halfway through in this case. At this point, I'm Scott. That's Obi. That's JD, and of course that is Mr. Brandon K. Welcome aboard. I believe this is your first sports den too. At that,
this is my debut appearance at the den.
Yokozo Kokoni. So
it's quite comfy. We got nice couches in here. It's comfortable.
Nice. Yeah, take it easy. Yeah. Relax. Take a load off.
Back. Put my feet up.
Before we move on to anything else, do you guys have anything else that you wanted to add or cover or close out when it comes to the Super Bowl and predictions and whatnot?
I was going to say that I think at the end of the day, it's kind of just going to fall in line with the rest of these recent Super Bowls where one doesn't really stand out so much more than the others. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean it's not going to be a good game and it's not going to be an exciting matchup. But again, back to the whole likability with Stafford and Burrow, and I'd be happy for either one of them, really. Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to be a very overall positive and fun Super Bowl to watch.
Nice.
The Super Bowl is, especially in recent years, it isn't so much a football game as it is a entertainment event that has a little bit of football, especially with this crazy halftime show lineup. I love the meme that a lot of kids are gonna find out, what their parents, what their millennial and Gen X parents are really like with this halftime show lineup.
Now. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Because of all the other pomp and circumstance that goes with it, the football, especially in the first half, it is usually a slog.
Same amount of ratings.
And let's see, is one of our
and also to mention Stafford and Eminem. Man, Detroit, you actually made it. You made it to the Super Bowl.
8 Mile represent hardcore.
Well done.
Yeah, Stafford and Eminem are the closest that the Lions get to the Super Bowl. And as one of our commenters just said, insane ratings and statistics that come out over how many people tune in for the halftime show. And so many people who normally don't care about football are interested because of it. Yes, that's exactly what happens with the Super Bowl every year. That's why it's usually only compared to other Super Bowls, because it's watched event on television around the world.
Which is a big problem,
holiday, in my opinion.
They've been talking about that.
They only need to expand the season one more week. That's the real reason they're going for the 18-game schedule, because we're only 1 week away from the Super Bowl being on President's Day weekend. Then there's your Super Bowl Monday.
And I've been saying that.
Week 19, week 38 of the NFL season. 10 plus friends all to get together, just for the halftime concert.
Also to put, as someone who doesn't listen to rap at all or really give any crap about that kind of music, I'm interested in this.
Right. Well, here's my theory on it. The 18 to 35 market has had a steady decline every single year since 2012 when it comes to the Super Bowl. Not even forgetting COVID, it has been a steady drop. So in 2020, they only pulled 29.9%. You go back 10 years prior, they were over 40. So they've had a 10% drop in that period of time. I suspect that this halftime show was in some ways a panic move to start drawing in some of the younger viewers a little bit, because of the fact that it is a little edgier. It is a little more hardcore, because those ratings are dropping and the NFL is losing its future audience because of this.
I disagree. The whole meme about this being Gen X stuff, these are old acts that are well past their prime and are doing other things now.
I mean, but they're still relevant to the younger generation.
Yeah.
They're still relevant.
No, if you wanted to hit the millennials, there are bands that you and I do not know who in 10, 15 years we're finally going to hear about, who you would put in that show. This is not an effort to get those folks.
We had the weekend last year. That was the one for the kids that nobody under 30 even understood that.
I'm letting that one go. That was a COVID year. Listen, last year, the ratings for the 18 to 35 crowd was 25.5. So that was a 4% drop from the year prior, but it was COVID. That's why I'm letting that one slide a little bit. And that's why I didn't mention it basically at the top of this small little segment, because I don't know what the numbers are going to be right now because of what happened last year. But I think the NFL is panicking. I think they are desperately worried about what's happening right now. And I think they're trying to move in the direction of something that's a little edgier to try and pull in some of the younger viewers a little bit. If you pull,
I think it's more just because this is a Hollywood Super Bowl. It's the first game it's the first Super Bowl in the LA area since the game that was in the first Cowboys Bills Super Bowl in the Rose Bowl almost 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. So as I mentioned before, total entertainment event. And a game that itself is literally in Hollywood, so it's ready made to just make the whole thing a giant party.
I'm curious.
So I don't think there's any kind of panic or anything on the NFL's end. Doesn't matter what happens, up, down, whatever. The NFL is still king of sports, of television, of everything by a wide margin.
For now,
is that the case? In future decades, we'll see. But for the foreseeable future, even if the pie is smaller, they'll still have the biggest piece.
Well, we'll find out.
Right,
I could be 1,000% right or 1,000% wrong or somewhere in the middle.
I just hit up an article real quick. The top 20 artists of the decade, looking at the aughts. And by the way, we've seen many of them in the Super Bowl, and then none of these guys. There's Taylor Swift in there, Beyonce in there, Lady Gaga.
What is this? The top what?
Top 20 artists of last decade, the aughts.
The 2010s, we'll call it.
Yeah, gotcha.
The 2010s. Frank Ocean, Beyonce, Drake, Taylor Swift, Kanye. Like, those are the people that if you're trying to get to millennial, you see how Brandon's really feeling about them. This group is actually Brandon, as a metal classic rock guy, is looking at these guys going, yeah, these guys are so old, they've actually had influence on the music that Brandon's into. So I'm sorry, I'm still chewing on this point that you think that's the group that they're getting for the kids. You're remembering that they came out when you were a kid, not how old these guys are.
Dude, I listened to European power metal.
They're aiming with that 5 group artists. They're aiming for, that's like a 25 to even like a 40-ish. Even if you want to push it to 45, like that's the range. They're not pulling in today's kids.
Well, I did say 18 to 35.
On TikTok and Instagram, like they're not looking at Eminem's page. They're not looking at Dr. Dre's page. Like that's not. That's so. I think it is more of kind of the locale and vibe of each year's Super Bowl and what it ends up playing out like. So I think it's more in that logic.
So, as the second oldest one here, you're basically saying I don't know what I'm talking about then. So all right, cool.
Hey, you said it, not me.
All right, listen, that's okay, dude. Listen, Obi's older, and he even has less hair than I got. So that's saying something right there. But all right. Anyway, before we get a little bit more snippy here, this, of course, is the Sports Den. Find us always on Twitter at SSW Sports Den and Facebook and Instagram at Spanglish World Sports Den, Spanglish World Network, Zingo TV, channel 249 and 250. So we got about 15 minutes left at this point. I do want to touch on something that Obi doesn't care about, but I care about. Now, I don't know if Obi doesn't care that I care about it, but nobody cares about the Olympics. And I don't care about the Olympics per se, but I do care that nobody cares about the Olympics. And I don't personally know if Obi cares that I care that nobody cares about the Olympics. But I want to see where you guys stand on whether you guys care about anybody caring about the Olympics or not, or if you guys care that Obi doesn't care about the fact that nobody cares about the Olympics. And I'm going to stop there.
I don't care.
Wait, who's on first? What's on second? And I don't know what's on third.
I
can
go
go
the entire thing all the way through too.
I mean, do you want me to start, or should Brandon start?
Yeah. I could care less.
Brandon, go ahead.
Honestly, it's really more for me the winter more than the summer. It's kind of just at the end of the day, like, did we have the most medals? Like, it really comes down to that. I mean, yeah, Shaun White came back. That's fun. That's cool. But like, other than that, I don't know. It's not anything. I forgot it was. I'm more mad that TV shows are being put off for a month than the actual Olympics are on, and that's really what it comes down to. And I don't know whose one fault it is, but it's not really something that I've ever been fully invested in.
It's a combination of multiple factors. I mean, one thing that tells you all you need to know, to getting back to the ratings point, is that for decades the Super Bowl has been used. The Super Bowl is the biggest event on the planet. So whatever network in the Super Bowl chooses to put a show on after it that will also get huge ratings. It's either a new show that they're trying to promote, some other big special event. What is NBC following up the Super Bowl with, because they want to give it a ratings boost? The Olympics. Mm-hmm. Everybody is talking about the Super Bowl. There's many factors why people don't care about the Olympics. First, we just did this 6 months ago. because of the second. This is the third consecutive Olympic cycle, which is in an Asian country, which means it's a 12+ hour time difference with the U.S. NBC's pathetic coverage of the Olympics still tries to act like it's 1980 and that you can wait and show the main events, figure skating and the like, and American skiers during prime time, even though it's tape delayed from earlier that day. Whereas anybody with an internet connection, everybody already knows what happened, and they try and package it up in a pretty package with Mike Tirico running a show, and it just doesn't work in 2022. And if you're trying to watch something other than that, good luck finding it, especially if you don't have a traditional cable package, which most don't. And even if you do, what channel is it on? And they're putting more and more of that on Peacock, which, as Obi said, in this Peacock in itself is a mess. So they're making it's a stale product. It's not really a easily watchable product. A lot of people don't care because there's way more important things going on, like the Super Bowl, like COVID, like life.
Whatever's on Netflix or Hulu right now.
I mean, even way before COVID, a lot of the countries themselves checked out. The reason that the Winter Olympics this year are in Beijing, and you have all of the socio-political mess that goes with that. The reason that we're in Beijing right now is because in 2015, when they were trying to go for the bidding process to host this Olympics, it came down to Beijing and Kazakhstan because they were the only countries that wanted to pay the insane price tag for the Olympics, which usually bans countries.
Yes, I think London or Japan is still paying that off from years ago. But yeah,
did they have it in Beijing? What was it? 2008? Wasn't that Beijing
yes,
also?
2008, the Summer Olympics in Beijing, and they are reusing a lot of same sites. So that's at least part of it. As so many countries have built white elephant venues for this that end up falling into ruins afterwards.
They end up being abandoned.
Yeah, and the IOC requires new construction. So a lot of countries are saying, okay, this isn't worth the effort. Brazil's a mess from that. So the only ones left to do this are totalitarian regimes, Russia, China, and so forth. They're the only ones that will keep paying for this.
All I'm going to say on this, and we'll go ahead, O.
So if I may, yes, please. I don't care. And I think that's, do I care? That all kidding aside, the sports in the Winter Olympics suck.
Yes.
When they
and ice, that's all it is.
It's right. It's not winter sports. It's snow and ice sports. And when they tried to revamp it hardcore by adding the X Games,
thank you.
They didn't add sports. They added more events that are judged that nobody can figure out. Mm-hmm. And they figured it out. They've started to figure it out now because if you start to watch, like I caught like a little bit of the ice skating. And they can score half of it live now because some of it is now actual scoring because it's almost actually a sport. Look, ask any high school kid in America, when do you play basketball? And they'll tell you it's a friggin' winter sport.
You mentioned that, which, yeah.
The sports are wrong. It's not winter. It's ice sports.
But then we can't send our pros there.
Yeah, we have hockey, but we don't have NHL players.
Mm-hmm. And the last time there was Winter Olympics, the best thing was the NHL. Was the time I was and I'm not a big hockey fan, but international hockey I watch. Mm-hmm. I find myself watching it more than I watch regular hockey. I don't know. They say the game's freer. Maybe that's why it keeps me more attuned.
It's a different ice conditions.
Yeah, also, some way you also connect with the players too, because they're recognized. Even though you don't follow hockey, there are recognizable names there that you recognize. You're like, okay, that guy, and I think that helps it a little bit. Here, you got a bunch of unknowns competing against a bunch of other unknowns, at a time slot that can't be seen. Last night, I want to give you an example. I just really want to mention this. Last night around 9:30 at night, I forget what time it was. They were basically broadcasting the Olympics live. no tape delay. We got a live event right now. It was Bosnian men's figure skating as their live event. I don't know who this hipster looking dude was.
Who won? I forgot that was on.
Basically,
Damn.
yeah. It was basically
Forgot to set my DVR.
Dude, you know what? Maybe you can go back and find it on YouTube. But it was like they're broadcasting how amazing this was to watch this live. And we're like, really? This is what you got? You know, nobody in the United States can point out where Bosnia is on a map. We don't know who this skater is. We definitely, we can listen to like Scott Hamilton or Brian Boitano, and what would Brian Boitano do, you know, if he was there right now. But it's something that I think, again, they advertise it, like you said, it sucks because even their live events are like, okay, you know, this is the best that you've got in this time slot. You know, prime time in Beijing is middle of the night, early morning here. And it cuts into a lot of the quality of the product. So
another factor into Obi's point about how, you know, they're sports that are subjective judging sports, which means the other big elephant in the room regarding any sports viewership these days, things like that are harder to understand and therefore harder to bet on. Because gambling is what drives sports viewership.
Whoa, Nelly, is it ever? You know,
so you can't bet. People aren't going to bet on events that they don't understand.
Mm-hmm. And like another thing with these winter activities, we'll call them, how they suck. Like these like luge bobsled ones, like bro, like stuffing.
Hey, Jamaican had a bobsled team again.
Stuffing yourself into a pea pod with skates at the bottom and flinging yourself down a hill doesn't prove anything to me.
The best description of the Winter Olympics will always be the Robin Williams stand-up bit, you know, talking about the Winter Olympics, of which I cannot repeat a single word on this station, but it is fantastic. And his description of the luge is what I always think of when I see any of those events.
Yeah. Also, by the way, speaking of Robin Williams, if you ever get his description of golf, I recommend that one.
Yes.
Yeah. That is fantastic.
It's from the same special.
Yeah. He was great. So, all right. So basically, at the end of the day, we don't care. Most people don't care that they don't care. Some people care that they don't care. But at the end of the day, most of you guys, you don't care. That's fine. So we got about 6 minutes.
Like the fly in the room of the sports world. Like it goes around, like you know it's there. It makes a buzz, buzz, buzz. Like, okay, whatever. Well, fling it out of the way, and then it goes away.
It went up against Pebble Beach. It went up against, I think there was soccer going on, NASCAR at the same time, I think Sunday afternoon. So the Olympics is going up against, you know, things that are doing well here in the States. I'm trying to find the actual, you know, ratings, TV viewership of like Sunday afternoon. Oh yeah, don't forget the story. It went up against the Pro Bowl too, which apparently did pull in some decent numbers, even though nobody cares about the Pro. All right, gun to your head, Pro Bowl or Olympics, which are you gonna watch?
Pro Bowl.
I have to pick one. I'm watching the Pro Bowl.
Same. JD?
Which is horrible because
I watch the Olympics. I think that while the term sport is subjective for some of these events, I think it absolutely applies with the Pro Bowl. It's basically just a free trip to Vegas for the players to play two-hand touch.
You know, and if you listen to what Shannon Sharp and Dion had to say about the Pro Bowl now, you know, about how they used to play for pride back in the day, and now nobody cares. That's why
I retweeted that. I was like, nobody gives.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them for a second. As one of the players said, I am not risking injury in this stupid game.
Nor should they.
In 1 month, I have to get my free agent contract. No, I'm not. I think the moment the guy, Edmonds, tore his knee in the beach game at rookie and never came back, it was the end of the Pro Bowl as being something people were interested in.
But I think by and large, that's all All-Star games too. I mean, even Major League Baseball. You know, the days of Pete Rose plowing a catcher at home plate in the All-Star game, that's a bygone era as well.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we have
R.I.P. Ray Fosse. He just passed away recently.
I'm sorry, Brandon. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that's why we have the Buster Posey rule now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we got about 3
Baseball
to 4 minutes
is the other fly flying right behind the Olympics if nobody cares anymore.
Yeah, one's a fly, one's a mosquito.
Well,
one's blood sucking.
Straight up still bugs the crap out of you.
Yeah.
But in this case, there are supposed rumors we heard about just prior, since we got about 3 minutes left, we'll go to that, that baseball might start on, in some capacity, May 1st. Maybe. Do you care? Or basically, are you going to be watching Atlantic League Baseball and AAA, which, by the way, expanded their schedule by 6 games this year?
Until they're actually on the
care.
field for game 1 of the season, no matter how many games, what the day is, I will not believe it. Like, this is really, like, so absurd.
I'm kind of with Obi on this one. I'm getting to the point where I'm just, I don't care. Baseball is the only sport that has managed to screw up their past, present, and future all at the same time.
No, look,
And
every product, and I think we're talking about two in the same thing when we're talking about the Olympics and baseball, goes through the same thing. It's introduced, it grows, it gets matured, and then it declines. And, the interesting thing about being about 50 is, like, I remember when there was I remember fads. That's the quickest thing. And then there were products that I saw come and go. Can I interest you in a CD player? Now, baseball and the Olympics, they were already mature. And so it's weird to think that they're going to decline, but they're going to go through the same arc as every other product in the world. And I think their decline is here. It's just weird for all of us because we were all born and they've been going on for so long that they feel like they should be here forever. But they shouldn't. They do need to go away. And as Scott likes to point out, although I have some arguments about it with him, esports are huge. They're like the 4th highest thing. Of course, you're comparing esports to the individual sports and not esports to ball sports, but that's besides the point. Other things are coming. And baseball and the Olympics, they don't have the ability to make the tweaks to keep them popular anymore. They're just not what we want, and they're declining. And if you have money in there, you might make a good idea to get out and put your money in crypto.
Hey, and if
Buy NFTs.
And if there's an outlet to bet $100 on this esports team winning a Call of Duty tournament, people are going to bet $100.
Oh, there are. There
Welcome
are
to the
outlets
future.
for
So
those
that's
things,
it,
and
and
there's
it's
gonna
all
be
tied
more.
in. It's all tied in. If the gambling is the fire that drives the engine with these newer leagues, it doesn't matter the sport or whatever the other activity is. Like, that's the driving force, and it's going to push it into these kind of astronomical territories that we might not even compute or might not even think should be right and should make sense. But like, that is how it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, we've already seen this, and we're going to see it again. In 1950, the top sports in the country were boxing, horse racing, baseball. 2 of them are essentially dead, but they still exist. Baseball and possibly the Olympics are heading right with them. Maybe the NFL is kind of trending a few decades behind those sports, but they could be heading there too in future years. We don't know. There could be something that 50 years from now is the most popular thing that we don't even know it or know it exists yet. But so everything runs in cycles. We'll see where this cycle goes. It's just amazing how many billions are being thrown around by people in all of these different sports and where is it going?
Yeah. So, topic for Bounce Me next week, basically when Super Bowl is over. We got to wrap this up now. Basically, this is the Sports Den on Spanglish World Network, Zingo TV, channel 249 and 250. Find us on the Sports Den on Twitter at SSW Sports Den and Facebook and Instagram at Spanglish World Sports Den. For myself, I'm Scott. Thank you to Mr. Obi Spencer, rocking out the hat, rocking out the hair, and rocking out the back end too. I like the basketball, the guy doing the dunk too. Respect to that. Also, basically, thank you to Mr. JD Walker. Oh, there we go. Mr. JD Walker, we'll do it that way. And also Mr. Brandon K. For everybody involved, thank you guys as always. Thank you to Uniquely Steph and everybody else that commented as well. I'm Scott. Have a great day. Stay awesome.